Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Coastal Currents podcast presented by Desatnik Real Estate. Today, I am here with Tyler and Jackson Soul. If you want to introduce yourself, kind of what you guys do, where you are.
Yeah, you go first.
Hey, I'm Jackson. I am one of the winemakers at Cape May Winery. So my job entails growing grapes and making wine. So I farm grapes, and then we turn that into juice, and then make wine.
Perfect.
I'm Tyler. You also might know me as Ty the Wine Guy on Instagram for the Washington Inn page. That is what I call myself on there, but I am the manager and sommelier at the Washington Inn.
Perfect. So you guys have a pretty big family that's all over with some big family businesses. Could we just let's get started with some family history? Can you share how your family kind of got started in the hospitality industry?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite stories about how the whole thing started. Our grandfather, Toby Craig, at one point was a gym teacher in Wilmington, Delaware. Okay. He was a gym teacher, a coach, and I don't know what the inspiration was in particular, but he said, let's buy a restaurant in Cape May. They sold their house in Delaware. They both him and my grandmother left their teaching positions there. They bought 801 Washington Street, known as the Washington Inn. Lived there with my mother and her two brothers, Michael and David, and pretty much ran the restaurant. My grandfather ran the restaurant from the top floor, living in the same space. So very much like, this is what we're going to do. We're all going to live here and be one with the space.
And it was a vote too. So It was not just, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. His wife, Rana, our grandmother, sat down with everyone, all the kids, and they said, all right, we have this position, we can do this. And they all said, all right, let's do it. And I don't think they knew what that meant or whatever, but it ended up being great. They lived there in the Washington Inn at the top floor, because it was a bed and breakfast before that, hence the inn. And then
no longer have rooms. The amount of times that people have called the restaurant and say, "Hey, we'd like to book book 2 nights." We're like, "Nah, unless you want to sleep in the office upstairs, we no longer have rooms in this establishment anymore. So it's just a restaurant."
You gotta charge extra.
Yeah, charge extra. Yeah,
there's always a price.
Yeah, my desk, I can clear it off a little bit. There's a lot of papers and stuff on it. But if you want to just lay on there, we can get you a discount.
Did they have any hospitality background?
No.
Well, Toby worked at Country Club, but it wasn't like a family. There was no above our grandparents. There was no hospitality.
Wow.
Family in that, but they before that, Toby did work at a country club, and he had a bunch of other jobs. As a carpenter, he roofed. He did everything. He kind of just learned a trade of building, and then kind of just threw himself into with the family. Threw themselves into.
He was a ranger in Montana at one point.
Wow.
Yeah. Pick a thing, Toby, that you think Toby can't do, and he'll prove you wrong. He's a
success or otherwise.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. If he can figure it out, he'll try. He'll try his best.
That's really impressive. So, what are some of your guys' earliest memories growing up around this family business?
Well, we used to have a restaurant called the Pelican Club. That was at the top floor of the Marquis de Lafayette. It was so cool. You go up the elevator, and you have the beautiful view of the city and the ocean. It was awesome. And probably watching you work the waffle iron.
That was my first job. My first job in the family
is incredible. Waffles were the best.
Right.
Best ever. So.
They were legendary. And I think that was maybe the the waffles were so good at that point that we unfortunately had to close the place down because they couldn't keep up with the supply, and I started asking for more money. Yeah, exactly. But that was my first job. It was more of hey, we don't have a babysitter for Ty. Let's make him just do this.
Yeah, that's normally how it goes.
Yeah, but no, my earliest memory. There's really no core memory, so to say. It is just the Washington being almost like a second home growing up, just because we were. It was just stopping there like even multiple times a week if my mom needed something from there, or just to go in and say hi. I mean, everybody, Chef Mimi, who's been with us for 33 years.
Wow.
I want to say she's been the chef there. She is still within the restaurant. She's not taking the executive chef role at the moment, but she's still in the restaurant because she is much a part of the family as I think.
She's the best. You can't say enough good things about.
You really can't.
Mimi Wood.
Her food and her presence. It's funny. I think like if I want to talk about just early memories, it's her at that restaurant, which is because she's the constant, right? My grandfather was there, my uncle was there, I was there. Mimi's always been there as long as I've been alive. It's been her and her food and her kindness and her like kind of mirrored philosophy over what hospitality is that my grandfather and my grandmother started.
Wow. Yeah. One of the things that really stands out to me is that your family are always on the grounds, like actively working, like bussing tables. Like they're not just behind the scenes sitting at a desk watching things happen. What inspired you to stay on that path rather than pursuing a different career?
It was just like such a great, incredible opportunity to be involved. Looking at how they run businesses and how we were taught, there is no other way to do it in our minds, but to be involved in the business in that sort of leadership capacity. Mm-hmm. They don't ask anybody to do anything that you wouldn't do mm-hmm. yourself. So just at a very young age, you kind of know, wow, it's awesome. Look at them. They're so successful. There's an opportunity here to be involved. Let's take it.
I was not on that route. I first went to college. I was originally political science.
Okay.
For the first year, but I would go home and work. I would go home and work in the summers when I was at college. Drive 550 miles home from school and work for those, I don't know, we'll call it 90 days in the summer, and just really kind of just put.
And you worked for 90 days.
100%. Yeah. There's no special treatment. You are in the thick of it.
100%.
Yeah.
Everyone down here knows summertime. That's what you do.
Yeah. My favorite during one of those summers, I was working two gigs for the family. One being the Washington. I was managing there at night. During the day, it was a 1-year stint of doing Lucky Bones Beach. Which was on where Primal is now. We had a small burger shack.
Okay.
And
Shoebox burger.
Shoebox burger, yes, the legendary Shoebox burger, which is a bacon cheeseburger topped with Cape May peanut butter and beach plum jelly. Wow. Don't knock it till you try it. It was fantastic.
It was really good.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just kind of both those things. I think that was the summer I made the switch from political science back to hospitality, just because I loved it. I loved that creative freedom that it held. I could put whatever I wanted on that menu because it was just like a 1-year thing. It was like, we're not really looking to make this last. Let's just have fun with it. We did. But yeah, just kind of looking into it, I think there's just so much instilled love and in hospitality is just so what we can do and how we can give back to just the community and just people. You just happen to dine at your restaurant and they tell you, you've made this night so special. We've loved everything about this. All the staff is kind and knowledgeable. And that just makes me feel really good. Just kind of continue along, especially at the Washington Inn, which is, the kind of centerpiece of the whole thing.
Yeah. I was always my favorite thing about being in hospitality was like getting people's backstories, because we have so many people from so many different backgrounds and just like kind of hearing where they're from, how they found out about Cape May, like what they're looking to do here. There's so many people, so many different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a resort town, right? So you get people come here every year, and you get people here like, well, we're here for the first time, and Cape May is a really special place. I mean, there's really nothing, very little places like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with, working in that sort of environment with different people and different, backgrounds, you really get to hone in on how you work with other people, improve yourself, open yourself up to new things. And that was definitely really cool, especially working. I started working as like a busser, or first a dishwasher at the Washington Inn, which probably the best ever. And then I was a busser, and then food runner. But but just working in that kind of high pressure, environment, you have to know what you have to do every second of every minute. It was cool to be able to do that and then work with other people at the same time.
And that leads to like everything in life. Like
right.
if you could handle working in hospitality in the middle of the summer when you're sweating and full tables, like you could do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brain can't really comprehend if I were to be sitting, like in a cubicle or a desk. I don't think my brain works to that level of speed, just because being on the floor and being in a restaurant and you are just going, I can't see myself doing anything else. So I think that was another thing. I was like, well, if I were to work in this political science or whatever that degree would look like, down the road, I think going back and being in the restaurant being like, oh yeah, this is a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Action,
So Jackson, working at a winery in New Zealand had to be a pretty unique experience. What did you take away from that experience, and how does that help you now at Cape May Winery?
Oh man, or oh mate, as they would say down there. No, it was awesome. It was incredible. I was supposed to go to Italy and work at a winery in Italy, but the visa situation didn't work out. And so how harvests work in the world is that the Northern Hemisphere, they all harvest their fruit from August into November. And then flip that, it's end of January until like mid-March for the Southern Hemisphere, depending what you are.
Okay.
So, I was supposed to go, visa denied, and then went to New Zealand. Visa took like 3 days to get. It was like, all right, I'm meant to do this. Went down there, and I had a job lined up, and I worked at this massive winery. We do like probably 200 tons worth of fruit, in a season. That's our capacity. They would do that in like 2 hours or 3 hours, some days. Yeah. But, you also had their very small production stuff. It was called Villa Maria. This is the winery I worked at. It was in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. Very similar growing region to what we have. They grew Chardonnay, Syrah, Merlot, Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, very, very similar stuff. So I got to work with 4 different winemakers, each with their own style. They made wines in their different ways with the same fruit, which was really cool. So I would see the same blocks, the same grapes come in from one vineyard, and it would go to this winemaker. And he would do one thing, he might press the grapes differently. He might put it into barrel. And the other winemaker, all right, this fruit's made for stainless steel tanks. But, you have 2 different people with 2 different plans for the same fruit, and they kind of just figured it out and made different wines out of it. It was cool. It was just one aspect of it, but learned so much. It was such a great
really
opportunity.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, like, how many vines do you guys have between all your locations?
We're around 24 acres under trellis, so we're working with like 800 vines-ish to an acre.
Wow.
Really small team, but we're kind of whittling down our varietals and like what we grow well. We don't, it's a very, very new growing region. Mm-hmm. You go over to Europe, say, they've been doing it for thousands of years. We've been doing it for 30 years. So you can kind of see that, we're trying to figure out what our best, grapes that we can grow here.
Yeah, it takes time to know. I mean, with grapes to mature and see, and the long time climate, how they perform over those years. Well, you say, well, this one performs great every year. This one, not so much.
It's like 5 years to get it into full production.
Yeah.
And then after that, they say it's 12 years to really know the vine, vine maturity. So you're really in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many different types of wine do you guys make?
Oh man, like if you look at like a SKU, like SKU, like a one bottle of wine, that specific label, we probably do like 25 to 30 different bottles of wine. But we do 3 different Chardonnays. That to kind of put into that perspective.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So Tyler, as the manager at the Washington Inn, how do you blend the cuisine there with the wines from the Cape May Winery?
So we are not allowed to serve Cape May wine at the Washington Inn.
Wow.
So this is, and this is call your congressman. But this is
fight for us.
Fight for that's right.
It's a very huge issue.
Right.
Very important right now. Yeah.
But it's a production license and a liquor license within the same family. As we know, liquor licenses in New Jersey are very highly sought after, and they're expensive and all that. And when you have a production license, you can't sell to the liquor license within the same family. Huh. I like to to say it's like someone did some embezzlement once upon a time and ruined it for the rest of everyone because you can just sell it back and forth and
yeah.
I guess New Jersey does make sense.
Yeah. But that being said, I do my mom or Jack will call me all the time and say, hey, we're doing this dinner, or this tasting, what pairs with this. So I'm still involved with the winery to a very small degree. It's just the floor sommelier aspect of it translates. It's wine, right? It's wine and food. It's what I do. So they'll ask. We're looking to do these bites. Like here's the menu. What wines would pair best with this? And that's fun. I mean, it's they're the product, and you got Chef Mike Siegel over there. He makes incredible food.
Yeah.
So it makes it pretty easy when you got both two home runs to pair with one another. So.
Yeah, and before we had our kitchen for I think it's like 7 years. So now I think 7 years. But before that, we'd use the Washington Inn for like catering.
Okay.
We had our semi-famous locally grill nights that we do on every Wednesday in the summertime, and the Washington Inn would cater that. But now when we have our own chef and our own cooking staff, then we kind of been taking.
Yeah, that's right. I worked in the kitchen there, in the Tapas kitchen, and that food was so good.
Great, yeah, for what it is. Like just doing the small, just like pushing out a bunch of small plates. Because it was like not until like 4 or 5. I mean, you got the Tapas kitchen for 7 years right now, but before that you couldn't have food at the winery.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah, it's and New Jersey. Yeah, the New Jersey liquor laws it's all bananas. But it's you should see that kitchen on like a busy Saturday. You've seen it.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, the amount of food they pump out, it's like kitchen's like big as this room that we're in right now, and they just pump out all those plates, and they're just like, yeah, it's fine. Didn't bring sweat, all good. It's like,
yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
So like you said, the inn has been family owned since 1978. Mm-hmm. So how do you strike the balance between honoring its historic legacy and evolving to meet like modern expectations?
Yeah, that's something we do all the time. I mean, we really...
Great question, by the way.
Yeah, our tagline this year, we just started using this, and I love this. This was Courtney, our marketing director, but it's always classically cool. Is kind of what our tagline this year has been, and that's kind of what it is. Like, we know who we are, we know what we are. I have people there we've been going here since 1978. They come every summer. They know what to expect, and they get that because consistency is key.
Yeah.
You can't deviate too hard from what makes you successful because that's what got you there in the first place. But at the same time, we have to keep up with the Joneses, so to say, in terms of trends and what's interesting. I mean, I think a perfect example you can look at is our bar. We have the wine bar, which we branded as such, I want to say about 12 to 15 years ago, for turning it into a space that was a separate entity than the Washington Inn. Because, a lot of people, the Washington Inn is where you celebrate anniversaries and birthdays, a special occasion place. But we've turned that bar into something that is, classically cool. All our cocktails, our cocktail program, our wines by the glass, our bar plates, are stuff that's a little more on the edge, not the edge, but a little more on the modern side of things. Contemporary, yeah. I mean, that's where you can get the best burger in Cape May. I'm not being biased at all. Just come have a burger.
Not biased.
Yeah, it's a really good
The Jefferson burger.
The Jefferson burger.
That's right.
But, we do stuff like that. The bar, this past Saturday, before we even unlocked the door, there was 12 to 13 people waiting in line to get a seat at the bar because they're fighting for a spot.
Wow.
And
it's a great spot to hang out. It's a very, very unique... not a lot of places like it. I think because it's so true to itself.
Yeah, and that's what we want to be. Because you can not, again, if we are not true to ourselves and we do something that's too cool or too trendy in the city, and we like to pick up those trends, of course. Mm-hmm. But if we deviate too much from that first model, then we're not being true to ourselves. We're trying to be something we're not, and we know what we are. But we have events, we do different things. I think we do fun bar pop-ups. We have a Halloween one where you go to the bar and you can dress up. So it's it's also not taking yourself super, super seriously. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because yes, it's fine dining. But at the same time, our servers, they aren't robots. They have personalities. We want them to be themselves on the floor because guess what? You can have an experience with one server that you're going to connect immensely with, and you're going to want to go back and you go, hey, I want this is my server tonight, because we allowed them to be people and not just robotic fine dining servers.
And most people are on vacation, so
they
want to
that,
relax a little bit.
Yeah.
They want that connection, and I think the Washington Inn is just very beautiful in that sense. Where I think that the always classically cool is such a great way to explain it, because we are who we are. We're staying on top of things and making ourselves interesting, and changing our menu as much as we see fit to keep ourselves interesting, and frankly, everyone in the restaurant from not having to make the same dish. But hey, our crab cakes have been on the same menu for the whole time. Our Chiappino has been on that, which is my favorite thing on the menu. But all of our specials and the menu rotation and how we present the menu and what other things we're doing. We have a meeting every week where we're coming up with new ideas. So
yeah, I think that it's true for us too. Mm-hmm. In terms of what we're a newer business. We haven't been around since '78. We've been around since 2003. Is really when we started moving. But just in terms of wine styles, as winemakers, Mike Mitchell and I, we sit down and we kind of talk about, all right, what do we like, what tastes good, but also you gotta know that people are coming here on vacation. People are coming here to enjoy themselves, not necessarily a lot of wine drinkers maybe. So you got to make sure you have a portfolio that's well-rounded, has something for everybody, and we have done that the past few years. But in terms of stuff that's new, we're coming out with new sparkling wine this year, which is really, really cool. We're super pumped about that. It's a Cayuga Riesling blend, but we're not going to go too far off the edge where we're going to start doing super sweet wines or tons of fruit wines or something that may be cheap to make and easy to sell, but we're not being true to what we want to do at the same time.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and on the hospitality side, it's the same thing. We want the guests to come here and feel like they're having the best time, they're having a special time. We want to make it as beautiful as possible. I'd say it's like a social palate cleanser. When you come to the winery, it's you kind of forget where you are. You don't think you're in Cape May. You think you're somewhere else. You kind of just blank out, enjoy the wine, enjoy the conversation. We're not a huge band spot. We have live music that's not going to be too loud. So we want you guys to sit down, talk to each other, talk about the wine, talk about your families, your friends.
And there's so much and again, this is just a shout out to Toby.
Yeah.
But he just truly has an eye for making things just look awesome. Yeah. Any space in that facility, whether it's the port wine cellar or the coop.
There's three really, really cool pieces of wood. In the winery. They're on Lafayette Street, Washington Street, there's I guess maybe a B&B now. It's called the White House. It's crossing the Physic Estate.
Yeah.
It's fairly new. Mm-hmm. But it was someone bought the property, they exchanged, whatever. There was a copper beech tree there that was at the time it was cut down about probably 6 or 7 years ago. It was the oldest tree in Cape May.
Wow.
And so I was riding shotgun, and Toby pulls up, and there's 3 slabs of this tree sitting in the yard, and we take it home, take it back to his house, and people are, what are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do with it? He's like, I'll make a chandelier out of it. And if you go to the port cellar, we have this awesome stained copper beech tree slab, massive. You kind of just see how big that tree was. It's some of my favorite thing in the winery right there, and it's just beautiful chandelier.
Yeah, and
just kind of what you were saying, the assessment.
And just to kind of piggyback off that story, the bar, and going back to the bar at the Washington Inn, Toby built that bar. The backsplash of the bar itself is his grandmother's armoire. So it's really beautiful, ornate pieces. The front of the bar itself is the doors from the Washington Inn originally. That they, he's a bit of a scavenger and a visionary at the same time, because I called him that an art student who came in by himself, and he was kind of just pointing out all the little things. So where's that? Who made that? And I go, my grandfather probably found it in Philly somewhere, and I called him later that night. I was like, "Hey, the front door, by the way, where is it from?" He goes, "I don't know. I found it in Philly." The banister that goes down to our wine cellar is from a church in Philly. Like, he just kind of went around and just found cool things and repurposed them into the Washington, and made that iconic view.
Wow,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Southern Cape May County is home to several wineries. What do you think sets Cape May Winery apart?
I mean, I would like to say the wine, because that's my direct input into it is the wine and the grapes.
Yeah.
No, it's just like I was talking about earlier, just kind of just the hospitality paired with the wine, paired with the food. We try to maximize what we do best at all times, and we know that our strengths and weaknesses and what we can do. You said it earlier, Colin, about just people coming, or my mom Betsy, Toby, me, we're all busting tables out there. We're all cleaning up, leading from the front, talking to guests, talking to customers, making sure they have, like I said, they have a good time. Talk about the wine,
Yeah. The environment there is one of a kind too. Like, you're in your own world when you're back there. Like, in the vines, you have the tasting space back there. Like, you're in your own space. Yeah,
it's really cool. Like, you see the front of the building, and it's it's a big tasting room. And then you go back and you really can't see the street anymore. So you really don't know where you are.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of just immerse yourself in the vineyard. The vineyard's like from here to the wall, here to the camera. That's what the vineyard is.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there, especially when July, rolls around when the vines are in full swing, beautiful greenery all over the place. The flowers are out. We just do a good job of, the attention to detail, and kind of think of, if I went somewhere, how would I enjoy myself? What would I look at? And I think that's what, my mom does, our mom does really well.
So, speaking about your mom, I wanted to talk about your dad a little bit. I actually had the honor of being a Soul student in middle school. If you guys could kind of just explain a little bit about your dad, the man he was.
Yeah, well, I'll start, since we're talking about the hospitality and the family legacy. My dad was the worst bartender in the history of the Washington Inn. is the story. So he did not instill any of that upon us. But yeah, I love hearing that story. He's like, he went back down. He started bartending behind the bar, and every time he had to call his best friend from the Marine Corps, Larry, to figure out what was in Manhattan. But no, he was for lack of a better term, a legend. He was from being a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps and serving in 3 campaigns. I mean, you could say it was Desert Storm, it was Iraqi Freedom, and Somalia.
Yeah,
Somalia. He was there for the Black Hawk Down. He was on a aircraft carrier there. But yeah, from that into his, on a big scale, and then you take it down to a small scale here in Cape May, being a teacher, administrator, being a vice principal at the high school and a principal at the middle school, just coach, Boy Scout troop leader, volunteer fireman for a short time. He was he had the truest sense of community, which I think aside from being a bad bartender, but like that's like kind of where he connected with the family the most, because the Craig side of the family is so heavily community involved. And my dad, who grew up, his father being a Marine, grew up moving around from place to place to place to place, and then joining the military himself, so being stationed from place, really never had a concrete home. And when he came to Cape May, he just made it that. He made it everything that he needed to do.
He made it. He took full advantage of. He wanted every single minute to be first a great father and husband, but then to just be in the community, immerse himself with people around here, get involved in everything. Just what's hard. What's great about it is that we're very lucky to have him be mentioned so much, and thank you for mentioning that, because that's a true testament to somebody. It's been 13 years since he passed, to really still bring him up and talk about him. Not many people have that, are lucky like that, to have someone in their life that they still talk about. And it's funny, we're just they will be picking the Soulman student, the top 3 candidates, and interviewing them soon for the scholarship. So that's coming up too, and that's just another thing that's incredible, that the staff does at Lower and people outside the community, inside the community, kind of help out and determining the students, it's still just such an awesome thing to be able to go there, see these students, see that they're recognized for being good kids, and then
just like keeping his memory alive in the best way. I mean, outside of just like talking about him, but just he was a man of just really good morals, and seeing that it's like a scholarship, because like it can be. You can see a kid who gets great grades and does all this does stuff, but it's like, how are you giving back to the community? What are you going to do with this? I think was it last year or 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago where we had the three. We just couldn't decide between the three because they were all like, they all were just giving back to the community. We're all just kind of leading their lives with this moral code that we found to be like, a parallel to what my father would.
Yeah, it's usually a $10,000 scholarship, and then these three kids were so incredible that we did three.
That's awesome.
Yeah, three gave them each three $5,000 scholarships, so we upped it to $15,000.
Yeah,
and it was just it's awesome, and I think that that's what he would want it to keep that, making sure that the kids are being recognized for being good kids and moving
awesome.
on. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Hot Ones.
Yeah.
But they do a segment on there where they do a deep dive on the gram.
Chicken coming?
It's no chicken wings, But they do a deep dive on the gram.
Oh, thank God. I just cleansed my Instagram recently.
Before the gram. This is more for you, Tyler.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Give me some context on this picture here.
So that is, I want to say, so that's Chuck Nagel. Love him.
I think you were 23 years old in this picture.
I haven't seen a picture of me with hair in a long time, so that's a little off-putting. No, you're fine. So I want to say this looks like the Mr. LCMR potentially.
I believe that's what it is.
Mr. LCMR in some capacity, where I'm playing the bass guitar, famously super good at that.
Incredible musician.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I put all my musician dreams aside, to pursue hospitality. But I the memory of what exactly is happening. I know this is probably Mr. LCMR. This is probably we're singing something. Couldn't tell you what. My memory of this is not good. I can pin a reason, but not what exactly is happening here. So
Chuck is actually my soon-to-be brother-in-law. So
okay.
I've heard lots of stories about all of the band experiences.
Yeah, we used to play music in his house up in his room, and probably very loudly, and sometimes we were practicing, so it wasn't always perfect, but definitely spent a lot of time in his bedroom that was a lot smaller than this, that we crammed a drum set into and a bunch of amps, and probably drove both of his sisters and his parents are great, but drove us all them crazy. But it was a great time. Yeah, so that's funny.
Yeah.
Good pick.
What place did you come in Mr. LCMR?
Second.
Oh, wow.
What place did you come in, Jack?
It's first place.
Oh, okay, first place. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. I got most popular, so it's
Rick James Super Freak is
that's right.
Is what I sang. Yeah, that's right.
I'm not gonna say what I did.
Okay. All right.
Well, all right. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Perfect. Yep. Good stuff.
Cool.
Thank you.